numbers, so they're having to listen a little bit more,
Yep.
and they know that, okay, this is my, we always use target number a lot.
Sure.
So this is my target number. We're
Yes.
going to stop
Yes.
as soon
Instead
as,
of just everybody gets a turn.
right, and
we're
that's
done.
usually how I've been doing it is, okay, we're going to just start
Yes.
at 15, and then we count until everybody said a number.
Yeah. They give them something to listen for.
Right,
Because
and I think,
we could do it where we don't even make it around a whole time.
and I think that would be the thing that would be interesting for
so
them
they're not,
to,
because they are probably thinking they're going to get a turn.
right, exactly,
But
and
maybe just
and
this
to know that
feel-
you have to listen
yes
in
the same.
advance,
Okay,
right?
I like that. So that could be some warm-ups that we do as well. So
Okay.
I like that a lot. Okay, so looking at, this would be where we're going into, would be identifying whether a number of objects in a group is greater than, less than, equal to, and matching them, and then working into the numeral after. So this is the book I was going to show you that I have. So this is like the companion book to the Common Core. And so this just talked about that kids really need to start using the concrete materials and making those comparisons before they get into anything else. But on the back side is really where I like what they talk about. So it talks about that they need to be two very obvious groups. So it's going to be like one gigantic bag of M&Ms and one fun-sized pack. So they automatically know that that is more and that's less. And they can see that, and we don't have to do any counting. And so really we're going to develop the vocabulary of more and greater.
Right, okay.
Less than, less, anything. So they talked about like a big bag of popcorn and a little bag of popcorn or anything like that. But I was thinking anything that we can find that's just a lot more and a lot less. So a 64 pack of crayons and an 8 pack of crayons.
That's what I was thinking too.
So anything that's packaged that we could find maybe, and we could do just some real quick shows to kids of which one is less, which one is more. You know, we don't even need to count them.
Right.
So none of those strategies.
Okay.
So we can, and make it, maybe do like an anchor chart of
And I think that would be a great
things.
way to get them interested in it and to use stuff that they already know.
Right.
And they've obviously got some background knowledge, so that's not
Yes, that'd be perfect.
good to make connections to later on.
Exactly. So then it goes on to showing like how to teach them how to compare what is more, what's less. So the first one would be matching, which is kind of what they did today.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I loved. So that was neat that, you know, you already took those pictures today, so we can use them.
Okay.
So I like the questions it talked about. So asking questions like, how do you know? It makes them start developing that reasoning. So they lined up those. So it's exactly what the kiddos were doing today.
Awesome.
Without knowing that that's what they're doing.
Exactly. Well, but now to give it a purpose and to give it,
I like that. So I think the picture you took of Jameson and Mason will be good, because after we've practiced this, we could talk about, well, what were they doing in that, or how do they know? So
cool.
The other one was observation. So this would just be where they see that there's more triangles, and they talk about, you know, how do you see that there's more? But it talked about how it's difficult for them to explain that.
Okay.
It's just a scene.
I can see how that would be.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So that would be hard, I think, to teach them necessarily. I mean, I think the kids will say that automatically, but I think we want them to be more, build more understanding than just saying, I see that
and
there's
be more specific and, right.
Moving
to it.
Yeah, so then the other one was then comparing counts. So students count the number in each group and compare the count. For example, there are 3 circles, 5 triangles. So, I mean, to me, if they're observing, we'd probably want them to then go to one of these
Right,
two.
exactly, yeah. I would think that would be
And I think that's what a lot of the
logical.
kids were doing today when they were counting their bags, was they were doing some counting, and then they were, especially like Inez's group, so they were saying, well, they both have 10, and then this one has 2 more. So they were doing their counting one. So I think that this will come pretty naturally. I think that they'll do that. So then the other part that this book mentioned was just develop vocabulary of greater than, less than, which we talked about.
And we'll put on an anchor chart
yes,
too. Yeah.
Definitely. And then it talked about after you're getting through the concrete and they're doing these different strategies, then we should actually be asking them how many more and how many fewer to help them lead to that, that one turned off, to help to lead to those comparison questions that they'll do in first grade. And since they have those concrete, oh good, now it's, hold on.
You can see my arms.
We'll just turn that off. Okay, this will be great. So it'll lead into those comparison questions that they're doing in first grade about doing that, and then recognizing that it's the 2 sets and that, you know, using the same as.
Okay.
Or equivalent. No.
Yeah, let's not do that. No.
That's great.
Yes.
So if we look at kind of what we're planning for comparing, what are you thinking for starting out about comparing things?
Well, I love the idea of the big bag and the little bag.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something really cool. And I was kind of trying to think of a way to make it something that they can see, very visual, and maybe even get a little movement in there. And so I was thinking if we could find, like, are there more boys in our room or are there more girls in our room?
Yeah.
And have them line up almost in lines, and then we could say, oh, okay, well, you're the same too here, and then there's extras.
And I think they may even come up with putting themselves in lines, like, on their own.
Well, and that's a good idea
I
too,
could
to
see
just kind
that.
of let.
Where they
how are
might-
we going to have it be more of an open-ended?
Yeah.
How are we going to find out if we have more boys or more girls?
Because we could do. I mean, it might go into both counting. They might count both.
True. Right.
And they might go into measurement. So we could even do like an anchor chart when we get to that time of, a couple different ways you can compare
Awesome. Yeah.
groups, or maybe and we could even. Trying to think if we could use some sort of picture of of doing that. I love the kids' idea.
Well, we can even take pictures of them while we're
like
doing
in their
it.
groups,
And then,
or
right. Yeah.
just a group with the number underneath of it or something like that. So, because I think that's great how we could compare them, and we could do, I mean, anything in your room really that they could see and instantly know. So we could do even like adults to kids. I mean, that would be obvious.
Well, and that's probably actually that would probably be, because that would be way more obvious than the boys versus girls. So yeah, definitely that would be.
So,
I would do that before.
Yes. So we could kind of compare that one first,
and then we could do like tennis shoes or boots.
Yes.
Long sleeve, short sleeves. I mean, any sort of.
Yep. I think that's great. And we could even show on the board so if we did something like long sleeve, short sleeve, and we counted them out, we could even show with a manipulative how we're showing 10 short sleeve and 12 long sleeve or something like that, so they can still see maybe the sets, or if we line them up, something so they can still see though how we can match them and kind of do that to show which one has more that way. So I like that. So we can even include the adults and kids in that first one when we talk about obvious ones of M&M.
Right.
Or we could do that for like an engagement part when we do the whole class.
Okay.
As well. So what are we thinking for tomorrow? Should we do the obvious?
Yeah,
things?
I would think that's definitely where we'll want to.
So we'll do like the obvious of like M&Ms. We could do some crayons. And I'm thinking even like small stack of papers, big stack of papers.
So yeah,
just easy stuff that they can see right away. They don't have to do any work to count them, anything like that. And we'll just work on that vocabulary anchor chart.
Okay.
And we could try the count around the circle for the warm-up too with the ending number.
Yes.
We could even do, 3 times of it so maybe a couple times, one time we don't get all the way around, one time we get a couple times around.
Right. Well, and that's something I haven't done either, is to then count. I haven't done that, right, to go again. So yeah, if the number was big enough. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good, because they're supposed to be counting up to 50 right now. So I think that would be good. And then, so if we did the count around the circle, and then we did the obvious versus the, and then the anchor chart. And then maybe when we come back next week, we could do the things in the room so they're actually physical. We get up and physically moving them. We could even, technically we could have them take off their shoes and line them up, and physically see how that's going, just like the kids did today with their counting, and they weren't even really aware. And I think we should use some of those pictures again. Maybe we could even print off those pictures.
Sure. Yeah.
And we could put them on just so the kids could see how they line them up. And we could use those for...
because I do really think that they, just like when they were counting around the circle, like they remember, that was Sam. Yeah, so I think that's a great way
so they can make some connections. And all right, so we'll print off the pictures. And then we can go into kind of what we had kind of talked about before, when they know the vocabulary, they understand maybe how we're lining them up or how we're counting, then we can go into maybe numbers that are closer together.
Okay.
So we could do the cookie activity next week that we talked about with the bags of cookies, and then we could just have the bags of cookies from there that they were having to count with a partner or on their own, whatever we decide to do at that time. And they could choose, I guess they could, it would depend on if we want them to match them up or if we want them to pick one of the strategies and tell us how they know which one is
And maybe
more.
if they started with one, then we can
Oh,
say,
and maybe
well,
I should
try a
do
different one.
2 types of cereal because, you know what I mean? They could be, if they were lining them up, they could get mixed up really easily.
That is a good idea. So
If we did a cookie
Fruit
cereal,
Loops and
yes,
yeah,
they
cookies.
could line them up
That makes
differently,
sense.
and so then they wouldn't get mixed up all the time. So then we could just do you want them to do a recording sheet for that?
I always think that that's a good way to
Sure.
get them to, for share time, to have something to share and to,
So, like, obviously we don't want them to be using greater than, less than, equal to signs,
Right,
symbols,
right.
and
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
So would you be doing, like, 2 numbers and then circle the greater?
yeah.
Okay.
I think that's something that
Okay.
would be
And we
easy
can
enough for
come
them
over
to.
and talk to them about how do you know.
Right.
And especially if we get into, like today, they kind of went through their counting so quickly because we only had into the teens. But once we get into those larger numbers, it will take them
a longer,
quite a while.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And we can make some purposely that are equal to
Mm-hmm.
and put them in groups of things. And I don't know if it'd be easier to put both cereals in one bag so that they're all together, or if we should put them in 2 bags and keep
2 separate bags.
and
Well,
keep-
and then put them in a bigger bag, 2 little bags
Right.
and 1 bigger bag,
Yeah.
and then that's
to keep them.
Yeah.
So that we could do that activity. And then there was another one that I had found that was, they had rolled a die, so that wasn't on their own activity. So they rolled a die, they made a set of whatever number that the die said, so 9
Of,
or
like,
whatever.
cubes?
Yes,
Okay.
whatever. And then they rolled it again, and they had to make that again, and then the same thing, they compared those. So just another
Oh,
activity
well,
of,
yeah.
so they actually physically have to count out and stop, which I thought would be good for some of them, and then count out and stop on the second one. And I have dice up to
That's just what I was going to
25.
say, and then that would be good differentiation
Mhm.
because we obviously can give
right those kiddos
some-
that need into the
Mhm,
teens. We can
mhm.
stop with the teens
Right.
dice, and so then we can go to the 25 for the bigger
Awesome.
ones. So
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's a good one.
okay, roll and make and compare. It's a long name. And then looking at your other investigation things, like I think like bank it is good, but like this book said, it doesn't have the concrete
Right.
on there, and so that's really getting more towards the KCC 7. So we really want them to first be sure that they know how to do it in a concrete
Yes.
way, and then we can get to bank it. But I think that's
Yeah, and I think
good.
that would be good for later on.
Mhm.
I think that's definitely something we
too.
want to do. Just
Yeah, and I think the make sets of more, same, or less. I mean, we could do that even in an engagement.
Okay.
You know, like the first 10 minutes, they have their cubes, and you show them maybe a numeral. We can get some numerals.
and
in
that
there.
would that would be a good way to tie some things together there.
And they can make sets of more, the same, or less.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll think about this maybe for an engagement. This one's later. And we can look more into maybe making some larger inventory bags as well.
I think that's a good idea.
Just some larger amounts. Okay, well that gives us a good enough. I guess the only other thing I was thinking of when we're doing more or less the same, what are some things we want them to look for share time, or what should we look for share time?
I would say definitely how they're figuring it out and how did they know
Yes.
more, the less, or the same. Just getting that explanation in.
All right, how do you know? And you're organizing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. And we can, if we are going around and we can ask some of your and more advanced kiddos especially too, and kids that are counting fewer sets could do this too, but how many fewer, how many more.
Right.
Because like Sam and those kids, those will know instantly. If I have 20 and I have 25, I know there's 5 more in that set. So we could pull some of that in as well with those kids. And then we'll just have to be deliberate and make sure we have some that are the same.
Right.
To talk about.
That stay together.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And no pieces are lost.
Right.
Okay, so more or fewer. Okay, so we have a good
And I think
plan.
just making sure that they're using that vocabulary too
That's
then during
true.
share time,
Yes.
and that they're able to say it. And
Yep. Yeah, I know that there's so many more because, and really if they could do it with their comparing, because they could say like in this example, well 3 and then 2 more would be 5, or they could do it with their matching, like the pictures were where I know that these 5 line up,
Right.
and then there were 9 more, whatever
Right.
they had in that picture.
Yeah.
than that. So that would be a great thing to use, and we could take some more pictures maybe and use that as well.
Okay.
Okay, good plan.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.